story.
There's something profoundly heartbreaking yet touching about the way Mike Flanagan approaches the complexity of a haunting. First in the family-focused The Haunting of Hill House, and now in the upcoming second season, The Haunting of Bly Manor. The Haunting of Hill House was well regarded for its interwoven characters, haunting throughout time, and the story of the protection of those you love, both physically and their memory. This is something that The Haunting of Bly Manor somehow carried on in its own way, and Flanagan has reinvented the story of a haunting. Because this story isn't about a haunted house. It's about breaking down what it really means to become a ghost, the desperation and the tragedy. The series shows the process of becoming haunted and in turn, haunting others. The Haunting of Bly Manor is based on the novella The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I can say that the TV show does follow a lot of the main points of the novella, adopting the same characters by name and themes that are shared in the book. But the series does go a step further in filling in the gaps left by the ambiguous ending, as well as adopting a few more important characters along the way. In fact, this series is not only based on Henry James's The Turn of the Screw, they have incorporated other tales by the author into the storyline, creating a Henry James hybrid. It features aspects from stories such as The Jolly Corner and the romance of certain old clothes. This is important to know while watching the series because some moments, scenes, and even whole episodes seem misplaced. In the TV show, we follow Danny Clayton, an American woman with the desire for something new. Running from her mysterious past, she takes the job as the new au pair of Miles and Flora at Bly Manor. Their parents have passed away, and she is to live in the home with the housekeeper as the children's permanent carer. Along with this, we have the cook and the gardener who play a significant role in the children's lives. But when Danny arrives, she is instantly aware of the strange behavior the children exhibit, and she becomes increasingly concerned when she discovers that they are not alone in the home. The first third of the series builds the mystery, and at every episode's conclusion, we are left with a new layer of wonder, building the anticipation. At times, the clues seem too obvious, and there are many things that are held onto just to be revealed later when we had already guessed the answer. And this is where the main plot line, The Turn of the Screw, takes the back seat. And as I mentioned before, the other works by Henry James are brought to the forefront. And in turn, some episodes throughout the show seem to misalign with the main story. This hinders the tension and anticipation the audience has built up. We see entire episodes focused on Henry James's other work, and although I do understand the concept of bringing this all together for a homage, it just doesn't flow well in parts. And to be more specific, the details of the uncle were not my favorite. The way this steals time from the pace and the plot that was building is frustrating. We were just hitting the peak and somehow we're taking a side step. As the show continues, it changes direction again completely, and I was left wondering how it would have been if it continued on the same course. At the time, it seemed like an unnatural arc, but it only took me getting to the final few episodes to understand why it took this course and what the reveal truly was. The show really takes its time with the details so it can circle back, revealing all of its cards. It may have some focus on what I found to be some of the least interesting aspects at times, but it was not afraid to take its time to explain itself entirely, therefore creating a highly satisfying payoff, especially when you watch it for the second time. The thing is, sometimes you do get frustrated at the repetitive nature and the details seem unimportant at the time, but I can assure you the truth is always hiding in plain sight, and for this, it was very clever. If you hang in there, it is worth the wait, and a later episode reveals the biggest payoff, which is so tragic and encompasses the whole idea of the manor. Like I said before, this is one of the aspects that feel like a complete different show, but it is important to tie up the whole series, and it gave the show a deep complexity and changed its message entirely. And this is where the idea of the haunting becomes clear. No longer is it about the scare and the anguish, it becomes a tragedy. And that is the beauty of this series. Much like The Haunting of Hill House and The Bent Neck Lady, we fear the unknown until it is explained to us. So what was once terror soon becomes sorrow. Like Turn of the Screw, Mike Flanagan has a way of turning horror on its head, retelling classic ghost stories so they apply to modern characters. He does this perfectly with the meeting of gothic horror and what makes us all human. Flawed, confused, scared. You find comfort in his stories because they reveal the deep desire every human has and the deep fear of being vulnerable and truly loving another, even though we know everyone ends up with the same fate, buried in the ground. For me, The Haunting of Hill House was about the love of a family, being honest about our flaws and our inner demons, being vulnerable. But Bly Manor confuses the message and creates many more layers. It's about sacrifice and leaving those we loved behind because it was better to have loved and lost than to never love at all. It doesn't hit me in the same way the first season does, but the message is so important in a completely different way. I really enjoyed this series, and again, as I said before, watching it a second time through, I had a newfound appreciation for it and the way it was all tied together. You won't realize a lot of what's going on at first, even though you think you can guess it, because the devil is really in the details, and the writing for the series is done in such a way that upon reflection, only then do you realize the message of it all. It's not as straightforward as you think, but I think you guys are really gonna like this series. It's just not as family focused as the first one was. It's a little bit more romantic, but Mike Flanagan romantic, so pretty creepy. The Haunting of Bly Manor hits Netflix on the 9th of October. Please check it out. You will not be sorry, especially if you liked the first season. I think you're really gonna like this one. Also, keep your eyes out because I will have a full breakdown of this series coming out later in the week. So once you've watched it, you can definitely watch that video. And I'm gonna get into the nitty-gritty and explain a lot of things. So I'm very excited for that. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I do 2 videos every single week talking about horror movies and thrillers, anything dark and disturbing. That's my ish. I hope you're having a great day and I'll talk to you very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.